Right now on the National Weather Desk, after the ice storm.
The widespread tree damage is going to take a lot of time and TLC to clean up.
What's causing parts of Utah to have some of the worst air quality in the nation?
It's like living with somebody who smokes half a pack of cigarettes a day.
The fight over water rights out west heats up.
There's not enough water. Everybody wants more of it.
Are you prepared should disaster strike your community?
Preparedness is more important than ever.
And we'll meet the first African American to lead the National Severe Storms Laboratory.
Our mission really does really focus on people and saving lives and protecting property.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I am Angela Brown. The ice has melted in Austin after last week's storm, but the damage remains, with the trees in Austin really taking the brunt of the punishment. Meteorologist Chicago Windler reports the cleanup is going to take a long time and recovery even longer.
Tree hit our house, hit the side of it, and the neighbor's tree actually hit our house, and the backyard tree almost hit our house too.
Sound familiar? Central Texans endured what some are calling a tree-pocalypse, with over half an inch of ice pushing trees to their breaking point. And now the task of cleaning up and the worry of whether Austin's most devastated trees will survive.
There will definitely be trees that won't come back for a number of factors. Either they've lost too much of their canopy, too many branches have come down, or some of the secondary pathogens will come in where they have these open wounds and we start seeing more insects or more diseases.
Jonathan Motzinger is a certified arborist and certified forester with the Texas A&M Forest Service.
A lot of these trees are still going to live. They're going to make it through this, but they're going to have these big defects,
which may affect how the tree looks long term and how it holds up to future stresses like heat, drought, and storms.
The best bet is to contact a certified arborist. They have the training, the expertise to know what to do and how to do it well. These trees have lost a lot of their canopy, their leaves, that allow them to make food. So we don't want to go in and heavily remove a lot of other parts of the tree because that is going to be added stress to it.
And for oak trees,
have a can of spray paint that you can spray that tree, spray that open wound with to help prevent the spread of oak wilt. Trees are resilient. They'll come out of it, and we'll do the best that we can to help them.
32,000 customers are still in the dark this morning. Most are in the Austin area. The power company says 600 workers are on the ground restoring power, but round 2 is on the way. Thunderstorms are expected tomorrow, which could bring more damage and, of course, more outages. Given all of the down power lines across central Texas, many people are asking, why don't we just bury power lines underground? This comes up every year. Austin's Energy General Manager says there are several reasons not to bury the lines.
It's very expensive to retrofit a system and go back and bury power lines. Very expensive, billions of dollars. They're vulnerable to flooding. And if they do have an outage, it's more difficult to identify where the break in the power line is, where the damage has occurred.
As a result, outages from buried lines typically last much longer. And now to Utah, where the air quality has been among the worst in the nation, and you can trace it back to something called an inversion. That's when warm air settles on top of a valley and traps the colder air. That means all the pollution and emissions are stuck, unable to escape. Amanda Gilbert shows us how this is impacting the people who live near Salt Lake City.
That nasty winter inversion.
It was uncomfortable to be in.
You couldn't miss it.
It was disgusting.
Travis Jones didn't walk Rook and Junebug outside.
We decided to go skiing out of the valley.
Because it was so bad.
I knew this morning it was getting a little better because I looked out my window and I said, I can see the mountains.
To me, it's interesting when we get bad air.
Associate Research Professor Randy Martin says the winter inversion is something to take seriously. Some of his colleagues made this correlation.
When it gets bad like this, is like living with somebody who smokes half a pack of cigarettes a day.
He says all the snow this winter is a mixed blessing. On one hand,
When the storms actually come through, as they did this afternoon, they are dynamic enough a lot of times where they can clean out the air.
on the other hand, there's more white powder on the valley ground.
The snow allows the inversions to be stronger than they may normally be and doesn't allow them to break up.
Plus, there was those below freezing temperatures.
And that reawakening, if you will, of a bad winter, and with our population growth, essentially our increase in the number of emission sources that are out there has allowed us to see these elevated levels that we saw this last week.
Martin says it's important to remember we play a role in winter inversion.
Drive less, carpool, trip chain. If you don't have to go out, don't.
No inversion in the Sierra Nevada mountains, but once again, there's plenty of snow. Another round of heavy snow made travel a challenge. Aaron Heft has more.
Covered in slush. Slip and slide conditions up and down the Sierra. Signs even warning of chain controls completely covered.
So what inspired you to come up today?
The beautiful weather and the snow. That's what's driving us to come over here.
Shanton Satandon and his friend Greg brought their families up to ski.
I was just following this guy over here, and yeah, I'm blaming you.
But they couldn't make it up to Donner because they said it felt like they were sliding. They pulled over to the side just in time to get kicked out.
Get your vehicles out here!
Chain controls ever changing as snow hit lower levels. Caltrans wheel and chain checks inched further and further down I-80. Lines of cars backed up and following plows, providing some relief to drivers willing to brave the roads. This a look at what we saw driving near Whitmore from behind our wheel.
Wet, sticking snow, changing road conditions up and down the roadways. A complicated day for many in the Sierra.
A water crisis is looming over parts of the western United States. Drought and lots of water use has taxed the Colorado River to really precarious levels. Now millions could soon be cut off from that supply. Camila Burnell explains.
There's not enough water. Everybody wants more of it.
These 7 states have not been able to agree on how to achieve unprecedented water cuts. Months of bitter negotiations have collapsed, and it's now California versus everyone else.
California's side is that they essentially made a deal back in the late 60s, early 70s, that if their things are going to be running dry, then they get guaranteed a certain amount. The other states are saying, well, yes, but we've got this real crisis, so let's do it in a different way.
UCLA professor Jonathan Zasloff says the law and the size of the state give California an advantage. But the 6 other states are showing their strength through a coalition. All 7 states are now waiting for the federal government to weigh in.
What could happen eventually, I think, is that the Secretary of the Interior is going to say, I'm going to make my decision in 3 months, and I'm not going to tell you what I'm going to do. And then with that kind of incredible uncertainty, that might bring them to the table.
Another option is an expensive, lengthy, and high-stakes legal battle at the Supreme Court. So they continue to negotiate and encourage the more than 40 million people in the West that depend on this water to conserve in any way possible. Because more severe consequences could become a reality.
13 years ago, the first back-to-back winter storms hit the mid-Atlantic. It was most commonly known as Snowmageddon. The 2-day storm dropped up to 3 feet of snow from Virginia to New Jersey. Life pretty much came to a stop. The roads were all packed with snow, as you can see there. The federal government, all the schools, they were all closed. Then just a few days later, another storm hit the region. Up to 20 inches fell on top of what was already on the ground, slowing the cleanup process. And if you haven't seen the snow moon yet, you have one more chance. According to the Old Farmer's Almanac, February's full moon is known as the snow moon because of the snow we typically see this month. According to NASA, the moon will appear full through early tomorrow morning. The March full moon, known as the worm moon, will happen on Tuesday, March 7th. And coming up on the National Weather Desk, a history-making appointment at NOAA's National Severe Storms Laboratory. We'll tell you more about it. And disaster really can strike at any moment, from earthquakes to flash floods and everything in between. How to stay prepared for the worst.
As we look at the forecast for the Northeast, you can see that overall Monday is going to be a nice day. We'll see a mixture of sun and clouds. There is a storm system off to the coast, and that really will not impact anyone across the Northeast. Overall, a nice day. Temperatures are going to top out in the 30s and 40s for the most part. We are watching another system moving through as we head into Tuesday evening, and that could bring some light snow. But overall, temperatures on Monday topping out in the low to mid 40s.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the mid-Atlantic region. Not a bad start. Temperatures generally in the 30s and 40s to begin. A lot of 50s popping up during the afternoon. Maybe southern central Virginia in the 50s to near 60, and just a couple of patchy clouds. Our next weather maker, a warm front way out to the west. That's going to pop to our north for midweek. That's going to warm the temperatures up quite a bit. A lot of 60s also popping up as we head towards the midweek time frame. That's the scene here.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Michael Ehrenberg. Here's a look at your southeast regional forecast for this Monday. Beautiful fair skies as high pressure builds from Louisiana into Alabama and also Mississippi during the daylight hours. Plenty of sunshine, no rain expected. All the rain is well offshore. We'll see high temperatures, pretty pleasant. Most of the southeast in the 60s, Macon 68, Atlanta 65. We're looking for temperatures around 70 along the Gulf Coast with mid to upper 70s across central and South Florida.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Welcome back, everyone. The National Severe Storms Laboratory is a branch of NOAA focused on the research of severe weather. For the first time in its history, an African-American has been named its director. Emily Gracie sat down with Dr. Denae Carless to learn about his path to this position.
Coming to NSSL is a homecoming for me. Coming back to my roots and to my home state here in Oklahoma. Okay. So I majored in chemistry for undergrad, and the first atmospheric science course I took, I just fell in love with that particular course and with the field because, you know, meteorology, atmospheric science, it really does impact people's everyday lives.
So I'm curious, can you tell me, because I think a lot of people don't know what NSSL does.
Well, you know, NSSL conducts research. We're a research organization, and our mission is to improve the knowledge of severe storms, as well as the tools that are used for forecasting and monitoring those storms. We do flash flood research, we do lightning and, wind damage research, as well as winter weather research. And so we're one of those organizations that's multifaceted. And, you know, our mission really does really focus on people and saving lives and protecting property.
We're catching you in your first week here. Do you have any goals set out so far?
When you come into an organization that is, you know, the premier severe weather research organization, there's not too much that you really kind of need to come in and change. I want to make sure that we are serving a diverse population as well. It's a team effort. It's not just about Denae Carless, it's about us as a team and us moving NSSL forward into the future.
I recently interviewed Michael Morgan, and he told me a big push of his is going to be hiring diverse leaders. Do you think that NOAA's doing a great job recently in moving in that direction?
I think NOAA's doing a good job. I think we can do better. Absolutely. And I think, when I think about where we're going in the future and the leaders that we have in place within NOAA today, I think we're making some strides, some significant strides.
And head over to YouTube for a longer version of this interview with Dr. Carlos. He talks about his childhood in Oklahoma and how he wound up with a full scholarship to Howard University. Search the National Weather Desk and hit subscribe while you are there. And now, here's a big question. If disaster struck your community, would you be ready? There are basic supplies you should have at your home just in case the worst actually happens. Kelly Koopmans runs down that list from Seattle, Washington.
30 years later, the images of Hurricane Andrew are still shocking. Lives left in ruins. People left scrambling for supplies to survive.
You've seen whole families come in with nothing, looking for help.
The new short film Hope Builds looks back at Hurricane Andrew while looking ahead at how we can all prepare before disaster strikes.
The thing it reveals is that preparedness is more important than ever.
We spoke with two experts from Home Depot, which made the documentary. They said in 2022, the U.S. experienced 15 natural disasters, from drought to floods to Hurricane Ian. Now they want people to prepare for what lies ahead.
You want to make sure that you have flashlights, at least one for every family member. Make sure you have a first aid kit, an emergency radio.
He says to also have bottled water, food, tie-down straps, and tarps, and extra pet food. And when you know a storm is on the way, clear clutter and any combustibles within 5 feet of your home. If the power goes out, you can use a generator, but use it properly.
Never use a generator inside. You want to make sure that generator is used outside, at least 20 feet away from your home, and make sure that exhaust is turned away from the home.
Parts of the Northeast are finally rejoicing this morning. Their cold snap this weekend allowed them to do some much-needed snowmaking for the ski slopes, a weather turnaround from their unusually warm winter that put a damper on winter activities outside. Meteorologist R.J. Helm has a story from Exeter, Rhode Island.
The only other time the Yawgoo Valley ski area has been able to make snow this season was during the Arctic cold snap at Christmas.
Mother Nature hasn't cooperated.
She has not.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Just not cold enough to make the snow.
With only a couple of inches of Mother Nature-made snow this season, the investment in 17 guns, as they're called, was well worth it.
And we should be beefed up for the rest of the year. Hopefully we get a few more nights and keep going. We should have 3 or 4 feet on the trails, most of the trails that we have open.
All that's needed is the cold.
As it gets colder and drier, you can put out more water, which gives you more snow. So it just ends up being what it is.
Over Christmas, how much snow were you able to make?
Oh, I don't know. Enough to get 2.5 trails open, 5 named trails, and it lasted all the way through January.
This man-made snow will stack up in piles that are then distributed to other parts of the trails.
We push it around with the machine to cover where we need it and get the right depth. We make way more than Mother Nature.
But is it better than what Mother Nature can do?
Yes.
Why?
Oh, it lasts longer, it's thicker, it packs down better.
Well, did you know that not all cold fronts are actually alike? The biggest difference is where the moisture is. Meteorologist Brandon Lawson explains from Charleston, West Virginia.
Did you know there are 2 types of cold fronts in meteorology? Yeah, that's right. We have 2 types of cold fronts. You don't hear us talk about them very often, but it all has to do with where the moisture is associated with the cold front. So if we have precipitation like a squall line of thunderstorms or maybe even snowfall that's out ahead of the cold front, we call this a catafront in meteorology. We don't often say it because it's just a cold front by name, but there are 2 types. The catafront, again, is where you have most of the moisture out ahead of the front, and then we have another type of cold front. That is what we call an anafront, where we have most of the moisture behind the cold front itself. It's a very rare occurrence, but it can happen. If the moisture can ride up over the front and get behind the front itself, that's when we get what's called an anafront in meteorology. I'm meteorologist Brandon Lawson.
Well, last week, lenticular clouds, the ones that look like flying saucers, were spotted hovering over the Cascade Mountains. Meteorologist Kristen Clark gave this explanation in her Instagram post.
How about those saucer-shaped clouds seen over the Cascade Mountains? Yeah, they're very odd-looking, and they happen when the moisture is just right in the atmosphere. You get that mid-level flow of moist air to encounter that mountain barrier, which is the Cascade Mountains, and just that slight lift in the atmosphere can generate these standing mountain wave clouds, also known as lenticular clouds, and they've been putting on quite the show for the Cascades the past few days.
You know, this little squirrel has the munchies and is enjoying some breakfast and fresh blanket of snow. This chime-in video is from Baltimore, Maryland. There was only a dusting there last week, but it was their first measurable snowfall of the season so far. It's their second latest start date here. However, it's their 8th longest stretch without an inch or more of snow. And as we go to break, let's soar over Virginia's Guest River Gorge.
Good Monday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael taking a look at your weather story across the Midwest for the day today. We got a little bit of light wintry mix across Wisconsin and Minnesota for the day today, but most of the rest of the Midwest dealing with pretty quiet weather. It will be windy out across the west today. As we continue into the day tomorrow, the winds are going to be picking up more for the Ohio Valley with some scattered rain showers moving in, and the Great Lakes as well, seeing some of those rain showers, more rain, especially to the south Wednesday.
Happy Monday, I'm meteorologist Joe DiCarlo. Look at our forecast across the region. We're going to start off overcast and patchy fog across good portions of Texas. 40s and 50s for morning lows as we head throughout the day. Really nice afternoon. We'll see some afternoon sunshine across a good portion of the area. Not much rain to speak of. Temperatures in the 60s and mid-70s across a good portion of Texas. That ice storm last week is now a distant memory. Overnight, increasing cloud cover and some rain chances with lows back in the 50s and 60s across Texas. 30s and 40s to the north.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Rebecca Stevenson, and here's what's happening across the West. We've got temperatures in the Intermountain West that are still below normal, and we're averaging in the 30s in places around Utah and Nevada, but we are going to see temperatures right about normal along the western coast. However, we're about to see the Pacific Northwest get slammed with a whole new storm, bringing in some heavy rain for areas and intense mountain snow, and even more mountain snow in the southwest. That's the scene from here.
Presented by the National Weather Desk.
Here's an icy view of South Haven along Lake Michigan. Meteorologist Jeff Porter says the ice shelf this past Saturday was the highest of the season. Meanwhile, slow cracking and thawing at Potholes Reservoir in Washington State, formed by retreating glaciers. It's now a popular fishing and swimming spot. And these lovely icicles observed off the Blue Ridge Parkway during a mountain club hike in January.
For more content like this, follow the National Weather Desk on Instagram.
It's been cold in many parts of the country lately, but why is that when the days are actually getting longer? Darren Zahn explains.
Did you know that even though we have the shortest day of the year when it comes to daylight in December, the coldest days of the year tend to be in January and February? It's because of something called cumulative cooling. The sun's angle in the sky is still pretty low during January and February, and in the northern hemisphere, we just continue to lose heat from the Earth's surface. The ground just isn't as warm. So even though we start gaining daylight little by little in January and February, that's when the coldest days of the year tend to come.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow we'll talk with a golfer that created a formula for playing golf in different types of weather. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Monday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.